What is up, down and sideways, all you beautiful individuals? We are back on League on Mark, Eric, and Mark here with you guys. And Mark, I'm still sweating a little bit from these weekends of games. I don't know if we ever have or ever will have two back-to-back best of fives that were as insane as this weekend.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it in regional playoffs, a gauntlet. I've not seen it at MSI. I've not seen it at Worlds. To get two series like this back to back, where they are instant classics and some of the best in all-time history that we've had at international events. What a banger this weekend was.
We always talk and compare to SKT versus Rocks 2016 semifinals as the best series of all time, any event. All of a sudden, you have two series back-to-back that you can talk about and compare to them. We start with the first of them, which was Gen G versus Dom1 Kia. Any times these guys have matched up in best ofs in the LCK, they have always delivered. This one was absolutely no different, and it became oh so close to the reverse sweep for Dom1. They had all the momentum heading into Game 5, and the Game 5 itself as a standalone is one of the best games we've had at Worlds.
Incredible stuff from this series all the way through. Of course, we'll go through it a little bit through, but you're looking at that. What happened? You have the very first couple of games going the way of Gen G, and you get the Showmaker Canyon pushback. A little bit of sprinkling of some Nugget reaction, of course, going to give him some respect into that Game 5 that you are talking about, and they left it all out on the table. Everybody putting their all into this one, but nobody more than Mr. Kane, Canyon in the jungle. Doesn't matter how many jungle bans you're going to throw on this guy, how off meta you're going to put him. Man, he looked like a Kane one trick out there, dominating on the Rift.
Absolutely disgusting flanks. Obviously, there's the big one in the mid lane that... Game 5 was a pretty huge lead for Gen G at one point, 9-3 in kills, and then that flank comes in combined with a Syndra pick in Game 5. Again, another pick we haven't seen very much at all, but Canyon was an absolute menace on the Kane. Regardless of how the rest of this tournament plays out, he has, I think, firmly taken back that best jungler in the world mantle, even though it ended up them coming up short. He had all these Baron and Dragon steals throughout the series, and the last fight of the game right before the smite. He smites a champion and not the Baron. If he smote the Baron, it would have went over to Dom1. That last team fight goes a totally different way, I'm pretty sure, if Dom1 has that buff.
Yeah, you have to be believing that, especially with the way that that momentum had been building in that Game 5 specifically, as you talked about, early advantages for Gen G. You get that amazing, attack in the mid lane with the Kane, with the Syndra to pull yourselves closer. And then everything since then, leading up to that Baron, was more or less in the favor of Damwon, finding a little bit of an edge, finding more pushback in this game. And it got to that point, and as you talk about, just the slightest of mistakes coming through from Canyon in this all-important moment with all the pressure, miss smites, and it goes over to the side of Gen G, and then it's all about the way that, you know what, even better than just saying that it's all the ruler show, which was what I was about to do. You got to realize that this is not just the ruler show in this final team fight. It's all about every member of Gen G finding an individual moment or multiple of excellency in this fight that allows Ruler and Gen G to clean it up and take down the Nexus and move on as the advancing team.
Chovy has a perfect stopwatch to negate the Aphelios damage, immediately pops Canyon when he comes out of it. Lahens has a pixel-perfect bubble on Showmaker as soon as he comes out of a stopwatch, and then obviously Ruler, the aggressive E forward on Lucian to take down Doc Dom, ends with the quadra kill for him. One of the closest series-clinching teamfights that honestly could have gone either way up until the very last 2 seconds of that fight, but I know Showmaker had an incredible series, and he looked like world champion Showmaker again. But that doesn't take away that Chovy still had a fantastic series, too.
It was excellency all across the boards on both sides of this game, and this matchup all the way through is what we had, as you're talking about, is that Showmaker really did show us Playmaker Showmaker. This is the guy that makes these things happen on the Rift. He's a world champion for a reason. On the other side, we have Chovy, who is the Chovy that we have been talking about all this long. The Church of Chovy followers, all the prayage, all the praise coming through and culminating in this series, and especially in this game 5, the early advantages. One of the big reasons they were able to get it is some of the gameplay that Chovy had, and then you get to that top side, and I think it really is underestimated just how big of a moment it was to get that pixel perfect stopwatch on that Aphelios ult coming through from Doc Dumb, because we've seen it, and we saw it again in the next series with DRX and EDG. That power that Aphelios can have scaling up 200 years, that is an instant game changer if you land an ultimate like that one with another 2 members of Gen G right there with Chovy. This fight is a different story if they don't get that pixel perfect stopwatch.
And for Chovy, now first time in the semifinals. He's been to quarterfinals many a time, and I know this really had shades of 2018 IG versus KT for me, because obviously you had the near reverse sweep that's denied in one incredibly close final team fight with an 80 carry winning it. It was Jackie Love against KT last time. And also, this matchup came way too early. Damwon out in the quarterfinals. You feel like if they played at this level, you could be talking about them playing in the finals.
Yeah, it does feel slightly bittersweet when we realize in that type of situation and the quality that we did see here. I don't want to be that rain on the parade type of guy for everybody else. I don't know if we're getting a series quite like this one to the level. Sure, there wasn't maybe some of the craziness that comes through in a series that we can talk about with DRX and EDG, but the quality of gameplay that we got to see here from both sides and in multiple different directions, that is what this series brought to the table and why it is that instant classic for so many.
And it only fuels the rivalry between Gen G and Damwon. And now you can definitely talk about Chovy versus Showmaker. And I love seeing Showmaker talk in the interviews the next day. He wasn't super down. He was honestly just proud to have been part of that series and how big a memory it's going to have for him and fans alike. Even though it was Damwon who lost, I love seeing that mentality out of him.
It helps when you are a former world champion, absolutely, to be able to take this loss and understand it and see a bigger picture of what it is to be a competitor on the world stage. Props over to the Damwon organization for that one. And we've seen that at various other times. We can even go back to last year and the loss that they suffered in the finals and the way that they handled that loss, as well as Khan's retirement away from the scene. Really do like the way that this Damwon organization and players specifically, like Showmaker, have handled some of the most difficult situations you could.
And I know some people are saying, yeah, Gen G won, but they still don't look like their summer form. Well, I'm more going on the side that Damwon really leveled up to get to this level of competition.
Yeah, I think that we are very close, or as close as we can possibly get right now with the results that we have seen from this Gen G team to the power level that they brought in their record-breaking historic summer split. Of course, this series really, as you said, was about Damwon leveling up, finding that form, finding that stride, finally, the one that we have been talking about all throughout the year. You can go back all the way to spring, talking about how we were trying to see and sort them out, whether they could be that third best or even push into that category with T1 and Gen G. You had the summer come through. You had Nuggery join this team. This is it. This is where you finally start to really form that foundation and build up and get back to those old levels. And it didn't come all the way through until we saw glimpses of it in the Gauntlet. And now I think fully online at the World Championship. Unfortunate, though, the time has come to an end.
We thought, okay, wow, that's going to be the best series of Worlds. There's no way that we can follow that up in the quarterfinals, let alone QDRX, excuse me, and EDG, because another instant classic, and this definitely had more of the craziness. You can say the overall gameplay was higher in Damwon and Gen G, but sheer craziness and just closeness on the Rift. Every game went at least 35 minutes. Obviously, one of the most insane plays you'll ever see in a professional game. Game 2, Deft going on the Ezreal to close the game out, and an inhib respawns on literally the final auto attack on the Nexus. This usually only happens in solo queue games.
Never mind solo queue. I'm talking about like the custom games that you're making for TikTok clips or something like that is the only time something like this could go through. Less than 200 health on that Nexus away for just a level 18 Ezreal to take down. And also, lost in this as well, as Def teleports in for that backdoor play to try and end it, you've also got the Aatrox trying to teleport in and join and help him, but gets canceled out because of where he is teleporting in too close to the members of EDG.
And Flandre cancels his recall to get the Baron recall, and I'm not even sure it was faster because he waited so long to cancel it.
Either way, the Inhib had his back, and it comes in just in time.
He knew it. He knew it all along. He said, don't worry, guys. Inhib's going to respawn.
Planned 200 IQ right there for the EDG squad, and 200 IQ as they went up 2-0 in the series at that point. The birthday boy, Deft, how could this happen on the birthday?
His reaction, all he could do is laugh.
Crazy.
All he could do is laugh. Like, but the universe is just against me. This Inhib respawns, and you would think that I feel like a lot of teams are going to be pretty tilted and collapse after a heartbreaking Game 2 loss like that. And DRX, not only do they not bench Piosik after going down 0-2, because first off, Game 2 loss was by no means his fault, but they double down and say, you're staying in Piosik, and we're going to give you one of your favorite picks in the Kindred. And we also get to see Deft on Draven, which was a pick. There were 80 carry bans, or bot lane bans, at least 5 of them in every single game this series.
Yeah, we just talked about the type of bans that Canyon had to face for the individual. This one slightly makes a little more sense. You got both Deft and Viper, so you're taking care of both sides of the coin in that one, both of them absolutely being targeted in that ban phase. And as we move into the middle part of this series, as you talked about, getting Piosik onto some comfort with the Kindred, keeping him in, as well as we find out later, getting some motivation from the substitute Juhan. You love seeing that and hearing that story of teamwork for this DRX organization. And then, yeah, Deft playing something a little bit more risky, a little bit more exciting on that Draven, finding that bloodthirst, finding those kills, and it's DRX finding themselves right back into this series right away.
And I don't know what happened in between some of these games, but Zeka must have just grabbed Deft by the shoulders and said, we will not lose today, Deft. We are getting back to the semifinals for you, because that Game 5 out of Zeka on the Silas, you know, we previewed this matchup and said this is a great opportunity for Zeka to really, like, we've already been highlighting him this entire tournament, but this is to, you know, set a legacy almost for his run, going up against the defending champion Scout. 4 solo kills in a single game.
Oh, man, what a showing from Zeka. This, you know, you talk about grabbing Deft and saying we're not going to let it go. It almost feels like Deft had used up all his energy throughout these 4 games to get them to this Game 5, and they're out of the Senzu beans. They can't bring back the Deft that is the mega carry for this DRX squad. They got to get it done. It was up to the other 4 members of DRX, and you know what? They did. All 4 members finding multiple ways to contribute to this game to keep DRX in it and keep them in a powerful position. All the way up until Mr. Viego, Mr. Piosik, the Piosin, walks right into Dragon Pit, denies the soul away from EDG, and says it's going to be the DRX show.
And honestly, it feels like, especially when you include that Game 2, it feels like DRX were the better team in 4 out of 5 of these games. So very happy to see that they did end up winning the series. There were a lot of kind of uncharacteristic mistakes for EDG, taking fights over objectives. There were a couple of games that at a disadvantage, they're fighting over like second dragon. They could have just given it up, but they opt into fights that they end up losing. But let me tell you, if I told you in the middle of the summer split that DRX would have a top 4 finish at the World Championship, I don't think you would have done this show with me again. You would have said, nah, I'm just kidding.
There's no way that I would have believed that type of situation coming through, even with as much copium as you could possibly get. I don't think that you were getting to this conclusion for DRX. And after, of course, the game ends up, we get a wonderful, a very emotional and touching interview with Deft about what this actually really means to him to get to this point and to overcome the demon that had been getting out of the quarterfinals for him, and talking about, you know, such a long storied career for him, and feeling like, you know, this need to get better, and finally feeling and realizing it deep down that he is getting better, he is improving at that individual level, and then alongside what he has, this brotherhood that he has with the rest of this DRX squad, really was lovely to see.
And now, obviously, advancing the next round, they get to go against Gen G. You have Chovy versus his former organization and his good old pal that he played with 2 years with Deft. Obviously, Piosik he's also familiar with. And, I mean, Deft just finished beating up on a couple of other teammates, old teammates in Mako and Scout. But this is the first time you're talking about a 4 seed advancing to the semifinals. And it was also only the second time we're talking about a reverse sweep happening at the World Championship.
That's the crazy one to me. Then the second time that we are getting to see that reverse sweep come through, it is the DRX boys getting it done. And as you mentioned, that reward is a date with Gen G later on. I think that they can take some type of solace, some type of additional firepower into this meeting. Not only what they did against EDG, taking down the defending world champions, best of 5. We just talked about the second reverse sweep, all these things that they can keep in their back pocket. They can also hold on to seeing that level, that upgrade that Damwon brought to the table and how competitive they were against a squad like Gen G and go, why can't that be us? Why can't we continue to take that next step forward, bring our style, our interests, Heimerdinger bot lane, and if you don't want Heimerdinger, we got the Ashe on the other side of it for Mr. Barrel, things like that can come in and take Gen G off of their controlled destiny and game plan.
And, Gen G are obviously going to be the favorites into that matchup, but if you're still sleeping and underestimating DRX at this point, you haven't been watching for the last 2 months.
Yeah, and look, if your heart is not pulling for Deft and he's poised to get it done, hey man, it's going to be a cold day for you. This has got to be the pull for DRX to come on through.
I don't think there's ever been a single player that has just the support of the masses. Even if you're not a fan of DRX or the LCK, you are rooting for Deft to have, at the very least, as good a possible run as he can at this year's World Championship. Matchup before all this, didn't live up to the hype, and it was an incredibly exciting game, one of the most exciting 3-0s that you will ever see following the JDG versus Rogue. We had T1 versus RNG, the international rivalry, the two most iconic organizations from their respective regions, and Game 2 was a banger, but other than that, this was T1 showing up, putting business, getting it done, and Faker, listen, the guy has never finished worse than top 4 at Worlds, which is maybe one of the most insane stats that he has.
And he was doing pretty darn almost all of that he could do to make sure that was going through. The problem for the side of RNG is it just wasn't Faker's effort trying to pull them through. It was the rest of T1, and the rest of T1 was pulling even more than Faker was pulling in that game. The way that they played games 1, even the shaky game 2, and into that game 3 where they closed it down against RNG. You had everyone obviously in China and the LPL talking and commenting on this series and RNG's performance. You had the man himself, Uzi, talking about it and said, you know what? Those RNG players shouldn't feel bad in any type of sense because, look, they went out there, they did what they could, but you just ran into a team like T1 in the form that they are in right now. What do? There is no answer to how well that they are playing. You've seen it at this event all the way through, that the form that they are in, the synergy that they have gotten, that's what you're betting on with T1.
I wonder if Uzi has any experience personally that he can break that down for. So different than the 2017 semifinals matchup with the 5 straight Galio games. It was, most of the other T1 players were like 13 years old during that series. So now all these guys have absolutely leveled up, and you got to see Zeus. Have you ever seen a more impactful 0-7 Jace in a game?
Oh man, how does that happen? Holy moly, Zeus. This was the answer. Again, if you go back and rewind time, this is happening after we had JDG dismantle and take down Rogue and cement their place in the semifinals. This was Zeus's answer to everything that we saw from 369 and saying, I'm coming for you, man. You're waiting in that matchup.
You can't be all you want all game.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. I know that you're going to have Kanavi. No problem. I'm still going to have an effect in this match. He showed it in this one for T1.
And the third game in particular really got to highlight, the absolute brilliance that is Kyria, we would talk about him on picks like Braum and Karma standing out mechanically. It was the Tahm Kench in that third game, an absolute masterclass. My dude is sidestepping Vi Qs on one of the biggest models in the game, engaging 1v3 under turret and surviving. This was an absolute treat for Tahm Kench means.
I don't care about any other statistics, any other effects afterwards from it. This Tahm Kench rework that we have coming through and making him able to be utilized in this type of way, to have this ability of playmaking, and not just there as the safety valve, the outlet to take in the ADC or the carry. This is what we want to be seeing, and someone like Carey is the best to pilot it. It was a true treat seeing him pull that off and set up all these plays for the T1 members. And just when you thought that he was at his limit, there was no way that you can go for this play, you can get these two under tower, he dives in and gets it done for the squad and doesn't even fall at the end of it. That is the Kyria difference.
And let's, give credit where credit's due to his bot lane partner as well. Guma had another fantastic series. He's kind of been the last peg that we've been waiting to fall for this T1 lineup to kind of be reaching its full power. And now you're talking about the entire group stage and now the quarterfinal matchup against RNG. He is firing pretty close to his spring level at this point.
Yeah, this is getting really good for T1 fans at this point, realizing that this is the T1 that we had seen throughout spring. This is the type of level that you are seeing, the completeness of this roster, of these players. That's what we're getting at. Seeing these performances, good and bad, weak side or not, from Zeus in that top side is what you're going with. You have Owner controlling the jungle and being there when he needs to be for his laners. Faker being Faker. It doesn't matter if you're camping him all the way through or if it's a free lane. He is gonna have an impact as you get to any mid to late game fights, the way that he can orchestrate them and see the angles or see the play that no one else can. That is the legacy of the unkillable Demon King. And as you said, that bottom lane, Guma and Kyria, specifically with Guma individually coming online, there is nothing to fear for this T1 roster. They are ready for a date with JDG.
So all four top seeds advancing to the semifinals. 3 out of 4 are LCK teams. It feels like we're in 2016 again with the Korean level of dominance. And of course, Damwon only getting eliminated because it was an LCK civil war.
Yeah, it does feel like a little bit of a blast from the past, and especially given the LPL dominance that we have felt and experienced the last couple of years running, not just at the Worlds tournaments, but at MSI as well. To get this level of a showing from the LCK when, they've kind of been talking about it the last couple of years, and it's always been more or less, at least in my opinion, mostly dismissed and said, yes, maybe it's not the same level as previous years, as the past, but it's a different era. The LPL has emerged and established themselves. The LEC was leveling up, all these things. Bit of a downgrade for the LEC this year, and the LCK comes swooping right in to show us exactly how strong that region is.
And that's not at all to sleep on the last remaining LPL team, JDG. There's absolutely still plenty of avenues you can see where they're taking down back-to-back LCK squads and lifted the Summoners Cup.
We're still talking about the LPL Summer Champions in JDG and everything that they had to go through, the playoff bracket and everything, and all the way through even just the regular season, talking about the way that they played and maintained their level of excellency. That is JDG. They are absolutely not even worried one bit, as much as we want to hype up the squads of T1 and even on the other side with Gen G and DRX. JDG doesn't care about who it is. They think that they are bringing the very best to the table, no matter what, on their side of the rift.
It'll be hard to live up to quarterfinals, but we'll do a full preview of these tasty semifinal matchups. But that's it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Beautiful people. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.